Hey, welcome to Hanging with the Hammer. Today we're going to talk all things Chicago. Roll the intro. Okay, my guest today is Tate Berkey. We're going to be talking all things Chicago today. So I'm putting a little, I just learned this from you, by the way. I
Oh
saw
yeah?
you last night adding comments, and I saw you last night doing all kinds of little strange things in your live stream. And I found this morning. So I wanted to make sure I say that today we're talking about Danny Seraphine in Chicago only. Feel free to ask those types of questions. We may add them to the stream and add you in. But for the most part, that's our discussion today. Today, we're going to talk all things Chicago. So feel free to ask as many of those types of questions as you like. I don't know who we've got here right now. I've got Chadwick Perry at 6:57 a.m. I kind of doubt he's still here.
Man, he was up that early?
Yeah, it takes a solid minute for people to get in. I got two showing up now. So he's up early. I'm up early. I was up way too early this morning. We won't talk about that today. So way too early this morning. It was one of those days. So I figured we would talk about favorite albums eventually. We'll talk about his drum kit eventually. What I really want to ask you, Tate, is how you got into following Chicago and Danny Seraphine. That's the first one. And High Claws from Sweden.
Yeah, so I was and I'll throw this back at you then, because I want to know, because your history is probably a little more involved than mine is so far. I mean, I'm a lot younger. I'm only 20 years old, so I got my start probably 4 or 5 years ago. We always made a point, my family and I, to go and see bands in the area when they would come to town. And so the Bloomsburg Fair, which is like 15 minutes away, it's like one of the biggest fairs in the state of Pennsylvania, like a county fair, but it's more like a state fair, I guess. But so the Bloomsburg Fair, they always have national acts come through. We went and saw Leonard Skinner, went and saw ZZ Top and Cheap Trick and all these other bands. And Chicago was coming through one year, and so it was like, let's go. And so by that point, it was like I remember listening to the greatest hits in my car. I was a junior in high school, and I just remember driving to school and listening to the greatest hits, like prepping myself for this concert, because like I didn't know that much about Chicago. It was just like, oh, it was going to be cool to go see them. And I forget if I watched the documentary that was on Netflix before or after we went to the concert, but man, after we saw that, and that was in 2017, so that was the 50th anniversary tour.
Yep.
When Tris was still with the band and Jeff Coffey was in the band and Wally Reyes was on percussion. And man, it was a killer show. I mean, they played all the greatest hits, and I just fell in love with the way it sounded. And so then it was kind of like going back and like, okay, well, they played that song and I didn't know what tune that was.
That's
and
my
so
wife, by the way.
Okay, cool.
Say hi, Steffi.
What's happening? But like, like I didn't know Introduction when I saw the concert. It was like, what is this cool long tune that they played to open the show? And then it was Introduction. So I went back and listened, and I knew who Danny was. And so then I eventually, watched I think I watched the documentary afterwards, and then kept learning more about the band and got more involved in their catalog, and it kind of went from there really. And then I started doing my drum covers and stuff a year or two ago, and I've just been listening and studying ever since then.
That's incredible. So it wasn't a teacher, it was something you just went and saw a concert and it started the whole thing for you then.
Yeah, I mean, my one teacher here at home, his name is Bob Leidecker. He was my teacher through the kind of second half of my high school career at the music school that I went to in Williamsport. He's a big Danny fan and a big, jazz rock and classic rock fan, along with all the other bands that I know you're into as well. And then I'm into Tower of Power, Steely Dan, those kinds of bands that all kind of fit that same niche that Chicago's involved with. He's a big Doobie Brothers fan too, but I know he was really into Danny when he was younger, and he would talk about in marching band they'd play what was the tune he said they used to play in marching band? I forget now. I think it was a tune from Seven, because I think
so. It was probably Wishing You Were Here or Call on Me.
Yeah, I think it was Call on Me, or it might have been Mongo. It might have been that one.
Okay.
One of those, one of those tunes. I remember.
Mononucleosis.
Yeah, I remember him talking about how
Mononucleosis, yeah.
that was one of the first tunes he played, and he played it in marching band, and that kind of got him like, what is this cool drum stuff? And he kind of found Chicago through that vein. But he definitely encouraged me to listen to more Chicago and to more Danny, and so that was kind of how it all went down for me. So what about you?
Well, my background is I started playing drums in junior high school band. I started playing snare drum and bass drum and cymbals. And I would listen to music on AM radio. I didn't have parents that were hip to music. My grandmother was married to a saxophone player who played in big bands. And my grandmother lived with us when we grew up. So she would tell me stories about her husband, in the big bands. And she really encouraged me with music. And she eventually bought me a drum kit at 15. So I didn't start playing drums set until 15. But I believe I saw the Chicago special Back to the Rockies or something, when they did some live stuff outside and they were in the studio, and it was a Dick Clark production. I actually have a copy of it now, and you can find it on YouTube all over the place. I saw that on television. I think it was CBS. And then I had a friend in high school band named Bob Berry, who was a trumpet player, and he loved Chicago, and we were best friends, and he turned me on to Chicago. So I was starting to listen to them. And it wasn't until I bought a drum set at 15 that I bought Chicago's Greatest Hits. And that became my favorite album to play along to. And once I got into playing all those songs, I had to start going backwards. So I think I got it in 75, and then, or actually probably beginning of 76. And then they released Chicago 10. So then I bought Chicago 10, and then I started buying backwards. And I bought every stinking album all the way up to 18 probably. I had all the albums up to 18. But I really went backwards because, I'm really not the hippie kid because, I'm born in 1960, so I was too young for Woodstock and the Beatles. But I'm older, I'm old, don't get me wrong. I don't want to act like I'm not old. I'm plenty old. But I wasn't old enough to be hip enough to be going to concerts. So my first concert seeing Chicago was 1977. And I actually saw the band at Madison Square Garden with Terry Kath in the band.
Oh, wow.
Before he died. It was November of 77. And they had just released Chicago 11. But by that time, I'd already had CTA, Chicago 2, 3, Carnegie Hall. I bought Chicago 5. I bought 6 and 7 and 8. And then I bought 11. And then I found this album, which I pulled out of my collection. This is the Japan.
Oh, that's
album.
that live in 75?
No, this is actually the one in Japan that was released.
In Japan, okay.
Live in Japan. And it was cut in 1972 when they did Saturday in the Park, and State of the Union was on there, and Mississippi Delta Blues.
Is Song for Richard and His Friends on there too?
Yeah, I think it still is on there. Yeah, I think they put it on that one. It's a much better sounding album than Carnegie Hall. Carnegie Hall never sounded great,
Mm-hmm.
But I had all 4 of those, and the posters and all the stuff that came in the albums. Back in the day, you got a lot of stuff. You learned a lot about your favorite groups. That was the thing about it. And I listened to all that. And my favorite song from Greatest Hits was Beginnings for some reason. Even though I had a good friend in high school, his name was Bill McCabe, we learned the drum thing at the end of Make Me Smile.
Mm-hmm.
We learned that. We all, that was
everybody knows it.
You had to play it. So, but Beginnings was the song I liked, and there was all these different versions of Beginnings, and they never played it the same way. You always played it differently. We do a bossa thing on one of them. I think in the live in Japan's got a bossa thing, and the one, the original version's got the extended percussion at the end. And I always like that little breakdown, but it's really not a solo. It's just a breakdown, and now it's a bass thing. I think the way they do it now, it's usually a bass break. But that's how I got into Chicago. That was my starting point. And from there, I just jumped in, and it was like all things Danny, and I didn't think about Led Zeppelin or anything else. And senior year, I got into a band that we were doing Doobie Brothers and We ended up doing some Steely Dan, and I started to broaden my horizon. And then once I got to college, I got like exposed to jazz, and it was like, okay, I got to get bigger than Danny Seraphine,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And Chicago was already starting to wane a little bit. And in college in 1980, I think was 14, and then by the time they did 16, I was dating my wife. We went to see a concert at Radio City Music Hall when they did Chicago 16, Love Me
Oh wow.
Tomorrow, and you know, Follow Me, and what was the other one? Hard to Say I'm Sorry, in a
Mm-hmm.
way. Yeah. So that was all. That was my Chicago, like really jammed into that college experience. So I was totally in it. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like if there was a tour to see them on, it was the '77 tour. It just seemed like they were on complete fire around that time.
Yeah, and
I've listened. Go ahead.
there's some footage of that tour too, so that's the
Mm-hmm.
cool
Yeah, a
thing.
couple different dates. I just recently found, and I forget, I have it saved on a playlist. Um, there's a couple different bootlegs from that tour that sound pretty decent. I think the one, Chicago at Nassau Coliseum, Uniondale, New York, May 20th, 1977. I think that was like broadcast onto the radio, and so that's why it was recorded into a bootleg. But it sounds really good. Like his drums sound really nice on it, and the whole band is just really kicking it.
And that would have been right around the same time he would have been at Madison Square Garden, because Nassau
Yeah.
Coliseum was on Long Island, and Madison Square Garden's right in Midtown Manhattan,
Mm-hmm.
and they probably were there those couple days. I think we went on a Thursday or a Friday. I can't remember. It seemed like it was midweek for some reason. It wasn't a normal. It was like a Saturday thing. But then back those days, rock concerts were every day of the week. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you just didn't know where you were going to get them. So.
Yeah.
But the other thing that got me with Danny was he had the Buddy Rich kind of chops. You know, he was going for that thing. And I was heavily influenced by my friend Bill McCabe, who loved Buddy Rich. So we listened to a lot of Buddy Rich and all those Buddy albums. And it just seemed to be a real connection point for me. You know, that and the AM pop music, that all the Hal Blaine stuff, of course,
Mm-hmm.
which I listened to a lot of that too. So I heard you guys talking last night about Hal Blaine. It was
Yeah, I appreciate you finally
Indian
making us
Reservation.
aware of what tune that was. I don't know why we couldn't think of it, but that's
Yeah.
the song.
Yeah. Dum 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 dum. Yeah, you'll have a lot of fun on that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm
Sure.
definitely going to do that at some point.
Want to say hi to CCM drummer and Lori Jones and Keith Scott and Claus. Thank you all for being here. And if Chad's actually out there, he was here at 6:57. I don't know how he did that, but if he's there, I got 9 of you out there. Thank you all. Today it's all things Chicago. So please, if you want to ask questions, ask Chicago questions or Danny Seraphine questions. But Tate, I found you on YouTube because you were doing all those Danny Seraphine covers. Last night I learned from your live stream that you don't use X-Track stems. You do everything playing over top of it, and it's the way you mix yourself above, which
Mm-hmm.
drives me nuts, by the way, because I probably learned a lot of the licks note for note when I was young, but something happened when I got older. I love the tunes and I know the essence of how to play them.
Mm-hmm.
But playing it note for note doesn't turn me on anymore. I guess there's too much in me now in my playing. You know, 45 years, you kind of develop your own thing. And Danny is definitely in my background. There's no doubt about it, because it comes out of me. Some certain licks just come out of me that are Danny Seraphine licks, like that roll thing. I do that roll thing,
Mm-hmm.
5-stroke roll. I don't even know what it is, to be honest. Danny would say call it stick tricks. That's what he called it. He didn't call it paradiddles.
Mm-hmm.
I heard him talking at a clinic where I met him, and he signed this book, by the way, Street Player. I have this book. I've
got my copy here too.
Yeah, I won a cymbal at that clinic, and I got a picture of him. I'll show that picture in a little bit. Actually, I'll show the picture right now. I think it's at the beginning of this movie thing. So let's see if we can put us both in and add the movie. Let's see, add to the stream. So there's a picture of me and
there
Danny.
it is.
Yeah. Of course, that's my friend Ken Burton's thumb right there. So I could not get that out of the picture. I wanted to so desperately, but could not do it. But I guess we brought that out. There you go. But yeah, so when in that clinic, he talked about some of that kind of stuff about what we were talking about a second ago. I can't remember what we were talking. I just spaced out. Did that?
His role stuff.
Yeah, his roll stuff. He called it stick tricks. That's what he called it.
Oh, okay.
You know. So we actually got a question right now.
Oh no, Chadwick started it already. I didn't expect it to come this fast.
Why did Danny get let go? Was it a time issue? That's a great question. And Chadwick, being a Nashville guy, and time is such a big deal in Nashville, I can tell you that right now. Because I got booted from my first album by a session drummer, and that we did in Nashville. So I know all about that one.
You got Kenny Arnoft.
I got Kenny Arnoft. That's correct. Kenny Arnoft. That's exactly correct. And you know, it made Kenny a better drummer. He'll tell you that story. So why? The question is why? What's your take on this, Tate?
Well, I've tried, like, ever since I've watched the documentary and heard them talk about this, and for those that have not seen the Chicago documentary and want to know more about the band, or at least want to hear their side of the story as to why they feel as though he needed to get let go of the band, you kind of get a better picture about it. But basically, their reasoning was that yes, he all of a sudden became a bad timekeeper after playing the drums for however many years. It just doesn't add up to me the way it sounds. And like, I've gone back and tried to listen to some recordings from that time. You know, I know there's some stuff from Japan of that time period where he's playing like the yellow DW kit. And I know he had a Yamaha kit around that time too at one point. And he had the E drums and all that stuff. And nothing ever sticks out to me as being like bad, or that, you know, as Lee says at one point, where he couldn't find beat one. I mean, I just find it hard to believe that Danny was playing that horribly that you couldn't find beat one. You know what I mean? Like it just didn't, doesn't seem that was ever a problem. So to me, I think they used it as an excuse to get rid of him for whatever reason. You know, I think it was kind of like Danny was the last thing they were holding on to as an original member that was kind of, you know, because at that point it was kind of like the band was half and half. You had the original members, and then you had these people that were hired out to fill out the band. And so I think the decision was basically so that there was no longer another original member, and they could actually have more hired guns than they did original members, and the original members could kind of lead and tell everybody else what they wanted. And I think Danny's style didn't fit anymore. You know, after those records that they recorded in the 80s, I mean, who knows how much processing and, you know, who knows what they changed about his playing on all those records. I mean, because it doesn't sound like him on any of those tunes. I mean, I was listening through all the way up to 19 for this because, you know, we were talking about our favorite tunes on all the albums, and it just like all the tunes just seem like a groove, and that's really it. There's no, you know, fills that are flashy and musical. There's just none of that kind of stuff. So whether they took it all out or they looped his grooves, or, you know, what they did. I mean, I know on 17, you know, two of my favorite songs, You're the Inspiration, is Carlos Vega, and Stay the Night is Jeff Porcaro.
Yeah, you're correct.
So there could have been more of that people still don't know about, or is just not credited.
Well, J.R. Robinson, I spoke to J.R. I took a lesson with him last summer, and then I did that interview that's on YouTube for those of you that know my channel. And JR told me he played on some of the Chicago stuff. And he was a friend of Danny's. Yeah. I don't know if you know this, but Danny got JR his first drum endorsement.
Okay.
And Danny his co-writer was in Rufus. Hawk Walensky was in
Okay,
Rufus.
yeah.
So Danny was really tight with the Rufus band. And that's why Chaka Khan sang on Take Me Back to Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Which is Danny wrote that song.
Yep.
So Chaka Khan came in and sang, you know, take me back, baby. You know, that whole thing. She just does that scat. She goes off.
Yeah.
So Danny and JR have a long history together. And, you know, Danny definitely helped JR early on in his career in getting the Slingerland endorsement and other things. And JR said that for sure that he played on a couple of those tunes. So I think stylistically, Danny was not fitting into the band, and there was a
Yeah.
power play. I didn't really. I started losing touch with the band. I started living life. I was actually at 20 in 87. I was in a band that we went to Nashville and did a record. So I was way more focused on my own music career at that point. Plus I had a wedding band with my wife, and we were doing club dates, and I had a day job, and I had my youngest daughter was born that year, and so I was so busy with everything in life. I kind of lost touch with Chicago. Like life took over. And all of a sudden I woke up. It was Friday night. I think it was a Friday night show called In Concert on ABC, and they had on Chicago. It was a whole thing on Chicago that week. And when I watched it, they wrote Danny out of the show. They literally wrote him out of the show. Like all of a sudden, Triss was there, which I love Triss. I knew Triss from, listening to Kenny Loggins stuff, but I didn't know he was playing with Chicago. I was kind of
What year?
freaked
What
out.
year was this program?
This was '92.
Oh, okay, so it was even a couple years.
Yeah, so he'd been out of the band probably a year and a half, probably at that point in time. And this was early in '92. And they wrote him out. I mean, they talked about Terry, and they cried about Terry, and they cried about Pete Cetera, even though they did Pete Cetera dirty. I did some research on that. And Pete Cetera said they pretty much told him, you can't do a solo album. And he said, well, either you can't do a solo album or you can't be in Chicago. And he said, well, nice knowing you. That's pretty much what happened. So it got kind of funky. It's a shame that that's what happened, but bands are strange. It's strange being in a community of people. And I know after Terry Kath died, that band really took some real hits, And I remember seeing them. I saw them in 77 with Terry. Then I saw them in 78 when they came back to Central Park and they did a live again. They had just released Hot Streets. They opened up with Feeling Stronger Every Day, and then they went into a live again. And they were a different band with Donnie Dacus, and Donnie Dacus didn't fit the band because he got shoved into the band. The record company put him together. That wasn't cool. And then you had 79. I saw them at, I think it was Aqueduct or Belmont Park Racetrack in New York City for a weekend. It was free concerts if you went to the track. And we just went to the concert. My friend Bob Berry and I went there, and we spent the night over. We saw 2 concerts with them that weekend. It was with Orleans, and that was amazing. They were doing, of course, Chicago 13 at that point in time. Be the last time I would see Lager playing with the band, and he wrote some of the songs for that album. And then the next time I saw them, it was 82 when they released, 16, and that was the beginning of them changing.
And what is Donnie Dacus isn't on 13, right?
No, he's on 13. He's on 12 and 13.
Yeah, right around there is when I get fishy with knowing all the songs, knowing the order of the songs on the albums and who's on them and stuff like that. I mean, I didn't even know. I think I was looking at the credits for 18 or 19. I mean, Steve Lukather is on a bunch of that stuff. There's the Toto name is seared into so many things that you'd never think it would be on.
They were the hot players. They were the hot players. They just played on Michael Jackson stuff. They're playing on everything. Jeff is on all kinds of music during that season. And you got to remember that David Foster, he was producing music for Chicago. He took over the band. Now, Danny was instrumental in bringing David Foster into the band, which is kind of funny. And David Foster's instrumental in getting Pete Cetera the deal that took Pete Cetera out of the band. But when David Foster was there, he was bringing in all the ringers to come play on these songs. And I think the first album he played with the band, so Danny's on everything on 16, but 17, 18, 19, it all started changing. And Danny didn't like the electronics. And I mean, this is now the beginning of the Simmons era. This is it almost looked for a period of time in the mid 80s like drummers weren't going to be needed anymore. They started making studios smaller so they can be done in production houses with sequencers, and they didn't need drum rooms because they don't need drummers because we got drum machines. And we'll overdub Simmons pads on it. So the whole mindset of the business was changing, but it didn't last. That's the funny thing about electronics. They don't last. They eventually change. Something better comes in next. A different sound comes in. How much could you hear? I mean,
Yeah.
It got so worn out, and anything that's from that period where you hear that sound, you go, oh yeah, that's that period. It doesn't sound fresh today.
Hmm.
So of course the music of today isn't going to sound as fresh either. The way we do things, it's all a lot of it's programmed and sampled and oversampled and blah blah blah. We can, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but I can go down that one too. But yeah, my perspective was Danny got a raw deal. It hurt Danny because he was an original member, and it crushed Danny to the point where he didn't want to play anymore. And
Yeah.
that was the thing that bothered me. And when I saw him come back in 2006 at Modern Drum Fest, which I have that DVD, that was just an amazing time when he came out with CTA and the standing ovation. I was all in his corner. Now that doesn't take away anything from Wally and Triss. I mean, they're all both great musicians in their own right.
Yeah, but like you said, the band is not the band they were back in the 70s and early 80s. Yeah. I think he would like. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. If you watch any videos from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2016 and you watch him play with them, like, I mean, it's just amazing how great he sounds and how much joy is coming out of his playing. I mean, the way he plays Saturday in the Park is so great on that live recording.
Yeah,
it's just so solid, and he plays some really sick fills, over that tune. And hey, I mean, you didn't lose beat one anywhere, so
no,
it would be really cool to see them do a theater tour and him play with them.
He wanted it. He would have done it in a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
The problem was they didn't want it.
Yeah.
And that was apparent, unfortunately. I think Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, once I saw them, it's kind of like seeing the Rangers win the Stanley Cup. It's like, well, saw the Rangers win the Stanley Cup in '94. I don't need to see that again, so I'm done now.
Yeah. Well, and like the set list has been, like, I saw them again in 2019, and the set list was pretty much the same as when I saw them in 2017. I just saw different people with them. So, I mean, that was cool. But, like, if they come to town again, I'll probably go see them. But after that, I wouldn't have a reason, because it would more than likely, if they came to town again, it would probably be the last time, or at least one of the last times. Yeah. Would hope, though, as there have been some teasers about new music, that maybe they'll play some new tunes.
Yeah, or at least pull out some of the older tunes. Like, I'm glad they brought Introduction into the set. But I think they brought Introduction into the set because Danny Seraphine was playing with CTA. When he formed CTA, one of the things he played was Introduction. Because that's a staple, crazy, odd time song. You know what I'm saying? So that's the amazing thing about it. And I think they knew that his band sounded like the old Chicago. Yeah. I don't know if you have the CTA records or if you listened to them.
I've listened to them. Yeah.
Yeah. The first.
And he's rearranged some stuff for that band. I mean, rightfully so.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. And then when Bill Champlin said, "I'm out of here," and hooked up with him and did the second album, that was pretty wild. And of course, he's had Jason Sheff play with him on shows.
Yeah, and Jeff Coffey's done some stuff with him, and
so
he never even played with Jeff Coffey, which is crazy. But I mean, I love Jeff and fell in love with him after I saw him play with them in 2017. It's a shame that he couldn't stick around with them for longer. Would have been great to hear him on this hopefully upcoming stuff of original music and the Christmas record. I mean, the new lineup is great too. But there's something special about that because that was the first time I saw them and everything. So,
well, I think that's the thing. When you first get introduced to the band, you're always going to remember that first introduction. Yeah. So for me, it's very hard to get Terry Kath out of my head because that's my introduction to the band. If I got introduced to them during the Chicago 13, I probably wouldn't have the strong Terry thing, you know what I mean? But Terry did all those first 11 albums.
Yeah,
10 albums or whatever.
Yeah, you can't forget that.
And his playing was just totally left there. So I think we covered Chadwick's question there. Let's see what CCM Drummer had to say. CCM Drummer said, "This is for Tate. How do you ensure you captured all of Danny's nuances when you cover his work?" Now let me give you a little background on CCM Drummer. He likes playing exact.
Yep.
And you play very exact because you're playing over top of this. So do you use any pre-written scores or charts, or do you do everything but what you heard?
So I thank you for the question, CCM. I appreciate it. I mean, if anybody would want to check, you can probably go through and tell that for the most part, I try to get as close as I can, but I don't know if I've ever played anything like note for note for note for note. I try to get as close as I can. I usually don't ever chart things out. I usually do it by ear. I usually sit down and go through section by section and fill by fill. The thing that I try to do more of is get as close to the feel and as close to the so what I'm looking for, the kind of the kind of drive that Danny's going for with a certain fill. I might not hit or move to the same tom if he's doing a roll down the toms or something like that, especially with this kit and doing those kinds of tunes where he's doing a lot of rolls down the toms. I might play 4 notes on one drum instead of 2, and he's moving down faster than I am or something like that. I think, though, it's more important that when there's a fill like that happens, that's what's happening, because he played that fill for a reason. It was a musical decision to play a fill or to not play a fill, to make a fill very long that goes over the bar line, or a fill that starts at the top of a measure and goes till the next downbeat. You know what I mean? So I try and find, those importances. I try to find the dynamic things that are important, and I try to find the fills that make the song and the groove and kick drum patterns or whatever else that make the song what it is. It's not like I have a checklist or anything like that. I usually don't chart things out. Every now and then I might write something down if I'm trying to figure it out and it's become frustrating or something like that. But yeah, I mean, I just play through it until I know I won't be able to screw it up when I go to record it, and I'll do a couple takes and go from there. So
cool. Well, that was a great answer to that question. CCM already knows how I play Chicago covers, so my own way. Let's Chadwick had another question. He asked, did the horn players become the guitarist in the 1980s? And the answer to that question is no. They brought in a guitarist. They had a whole bunch of guitarists came in to cover Terry Kath over the years, and I'm not sure who the new guitarist is. I know his name, Keith Howland, I think it is. Is he
Yep.
still there?
Yep.
He's been there a long time, but I know they had Dwayne Bailey for a while. Chris Pinnock was one of my favorites. That was Chicago.
Yeah, Chris Pinnock was the closest they got, I think. I mean, it's a shame that he couldn't be in the band longer.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, Donnie Dacus never really covered what Terry was doing. Terry was a force to be reckoned with. I mean, it was going to be very hard for them to find a guitar player that could sing like that. And Donnie Dacus didn't sing like that either. That was the problem. I thought when they brought Bill Champlin in that they were at least covering his voice finally. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because that Terry voice was amazing.
Yeah, and I think Lou sounds really great too. I don't know how much stuff you've heard Lou sing with them now, but I mean, I think that all the stuff that he sings, the only thing that's weird to me is like he sings Call on Me for some reason, and he just doesn't really do it for me. Like I don't know why the current guy that sings the rest of the Peter stuff, Neil Donnell, I don't know why he doesn't sing that song too.
Yeah,
it's weird.
Kind of funny because that's a Lee Loughnane song. Lee used to sing that song. That was his thing.
I never knew Lee sang that.
Yeah, he was the original vocalist, I believe, on the song.
Okay.
He wrote it, and I think he sang it. Lee used to sing for a while there. A lot of background stuff. He didn't sing a lot of leads, but
he sings "Color My World" now.
Does he? Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that was a Terry song, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That was
Terry. So they've kind of moved things around, and like Robert sings "Introduction." And like he could sing some of the other Terry stuff, but I know like it's been said that some of that stuff is emotional for him to sing. Yeah. Like there's a video somewhere on YouTube that I've seen shared in the One Chicago Facebook group that I think you're in too. Mm-hmm. Someone shared it just the other day again, but it's a video from I don't know what year, probably early 2000, late 90s, of Robert singing "Make Me Smile," and he sounds really, really nice on it. But I don't think he sings it that much anymore because it's like an emotional thing for him, Yeah,
so I'm sure there's a lot of emotions there. It's, for those guys. I mean, as they get older, you start to really realize what you lost and what, how things have changed and everything else and why you wrote songs. I mean, I mean, a lot of their songs are very personal. You just don't know the backstories of things. I
Mm-hmm.
was reading Street Player, and the greatest love of all. I just went in the middle of the book, was looking at the pictures, and then started reading again. I read the whole book 10 years ago, I think, when it came out, and there was this. I realized that Danny had some kind of love affair with some French singer. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's like I didn't really connect that one until I read it again the second time, and that's what that song is about.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they all had those kind of weird kind of things. I mean, they wrote a lot of strange songs that have meaning to them that we don't realize. So let's jump into some of the drum kit stuff. This is a drum hang, so we've covered the tough question. So let's I don't want to remove you. I want to bring you in. There we go. Let's bring us back together here with this. Here we go. So this is a little bit of some of my Danny Seraphine drum kit history here, and we'll go back to me. Now I had to do this in movie. If I could have done this in picture, I would have, but I couldn't. So let's look at his first drum kit. The first Danny Seraphine drum kit, the one that you see most often, and the one that was mirrored in the Hall of Fame, this one, was the Rogers kit.
Yep.
And the Rogers kit, which is interesting because I really didn't understand the layout of it until I saw the Hall of Fame kit, was
Oh, is it just me now? I don't know what happened. We lost Earl. Oh, there he is.
Sorry, man.
No, you're good.
So sorry.
I'm like, I thought I did something because I switched over to my page of pictures, and I was.
I'm just glad you're still here. That's. I gotta find the video file again. Oh gosh.
I have my pictures here as well of so we can pull them up then too.
Yeah, I hit something very strange, and it just
okay.
It was down too low, and it took me out. I think I hit Leave Studio. You don't want to hit that little red.
Oh yeah, because it's right next to the share button there.
Oh, I'm gone. But I came back. I made it back here. So, all right. So let's. Is my mic cutting out? Is that the next problem now?
No, you're good. I can hear you.
I'm good.
Yeah, yeah.
My earphones are not doing what they're supposed to do. Anyhow, so you can all hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So this kit, it's got a 20-inch, I believe it's a 20-inch kick drum. He was big on 20 and 24s. I actually wrote him a letter in 2006, and his favorite size kick drums was 20-inch or 24-inch. He didn't really like 22s for some reason, and I don't think he used it during the beginning of his career at all. Now, I think now that he's been playing DW a while, I think he uses whatever they send him, so
yeah,
it doesn't really compute. But back then it did. So this has got a 20-inch bass drum, a 9x13 double-headed tom, and a 16x16 floor tom, and it's got a 8x12 and a 10x14 concert tom, which is pretty strange, But that was his thing back then, and I think he used this for CTA and probably for Chicago too. Maybe even.
You think Chicago it was used on 3 as well?
It's a possibility, because he didn't get a Slingerland endorsement until 1971. So that's the interesting thing. Now, do you have any picture?
Do you have any pictures of the Gretch Kit, and do you know when that was used?
I do have pictures of the Gretch Kit.
Okay,
because I am that guy. I am the Gretch guy. Matter of fact, let's jump to that. This is the Tanglewood concert. And in 1970, they were playing at Tanglewood. So this is before he got his Slingerland endorsement.
And that's after Chicago 2, right? Or was that before Chicago 2 was released?
This is after Chicago 2, I believe, because Chicago, I think CTA was 68, Chicago 2 was 70, and this may have even been Chicago 3. They were definitely, the songs I've seen were all on the first 2 albums, though, for sure.
Yeah. So I think this concert was 70, if I'm correct.
Yeah, 1970 Tanglewood. That's what the concert is. But this is the interesting thing. I did this thing on Danny Seraphine 4 years ago, and while I was doing it, I swiped some video. And when I swiped the video, I got an image of this screen right here. And what you've got going on here is these 2 big mufflers. And those
Yep.
are only found on Gretsch drums. Nobody does two huge knob-sized mufflers.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, I wouldn't be surprised if this is a walnut kit. And this is when he introduced this other tom, this strange other tom here,
Yeah.
which I believe in Slingerland era is a 10 by 10. But I'm not so sure it's a 10 by 10 here. This could be an 8 by 12 for all I know. Because he had this thing where he liked a concert tom. He liked it on the Rogers kit, and he liked it on the Slingerland kit, and he liked it on this kit. And this, there's actually, if you look, and I can't get as close in enough on these photos, but there may be a little bit more video of it, but there's actually a Rogers tom mount holding it on, the Swivel-matic tom mount.
Okay.
And that was very common on pro level drums that were done at pro drum shops. When they bought these kits, they would have the hardware switched out. And Gretsch had the worst hardware, by the way, the absolute worst hardware. And so it was not like my drums have got Pearl on it.
Mm-hmm.
By 79, they were putting Pearl hardware on stuff. Prior to 79, you would see things like Slingerland hardware on it, or the old Rogers memory lock stuff, or Ludwig. But you would never find Gretsch on anything that was done at a drum shop. If it was done at a music store where they bought the kit with Gretsch hardware, you got stuck with it. Like my local music store had a Gretsch kit with that terrible mount. But so this is a Rogers mount, and it's got this concert tom here, 8 by 12, 14 by 14, 16 by 16, which was his preferred floor toms too, and the 20-inch kick drum. And this is the only time you really see this kit is this Tanglewood concert. I don't ever remember seeing it again.
And what's the snare drum?
This one is a deep snare drum. I have no idea what he's using on this one. He eventually went with the Slingerland kit, similar sizes, because he had two Slingerland kits that he used throughout the early 70s. One had a 24-inch kick drum, 13-inch tom, 14 by 14, 16 by 16, and it had a Sound King snare drum, which was the Slingerland. It's actually called a Super Sound King, which was the Slingerland version of a brass snare drum. So it was kind of like a chrome over brass with a super sensitive strainer. If you think of the Ludwig super sensitive strainer, it had the strainer, the snares that went across.
Yeah.
And that was the drum he used on Saturday in the Park. I know that for sure because I went to the Musicians Hall of Fame in Nashville, the first version of it, and I was talking to the curator of the place, and he took me around that day, and he basically showed me the Danny exhibit, and there was a picture. There was actually that snare drum was there. That
Okay,
Sound
cool.
King snare drum. So that Sound King snare drum was the one he used on a lot of the hits, apparently. But
I'm sure he rotated different drums.
Yeah, he used wood and chrome, but on Saturday in the Park, that was the snare drum, and he used to tour with that drum a lot too, from what I understand. So the secondary kit he had was the 20-inch 14 by 20 bass drum, 8 by 12, 14 by 14, 16 by 16. And the strange concert tom, the 10 by 10 concert tom. And matter of fact, I wrote him an email in December 6th, 2005, and I asked him about this, and I said to him, was the one black Slingerland kit, it looked like a 10 by 10 single-headed tom, 8 by 12, 14 by 14, 16 by 16, 14 by 20 kit. Are these the right sizes? He says, yes, I think that's right, instead of the regular tom. I liked how melodic they were. That's what he said. I liked how melodic the concert tom.
It's definitely a cool sound on all those records. It's a really cool sound. I mean, from Chicago 5 up through 8.
Yeah.
I don't think 10 it would have been the concert tom kit.
Definitely. No doubt about it. They might have actually started using a full concert tom kit by 8. I'm not sure. He definitely didn't. He definitely did that show in '75, the New Year's show with the black
with that
kit,
black kit.
Yeah, with the strange tom. There's a lot of video of that. So, but yeah, this was quite a find when I found this Gretsch kit, and I'm pretty sure it is the Gretsch kit. So.
I have a picture of it that I got from the Facebook group that, I mean, the badges couldn't be more clearer on the kit. So we can look at them once we get through this here then.
That's cool. You have that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You want to bring it up? I can.
Yeah, sure.
Let me see. Don't want to remove it, just take it out. Let's see, go back to the other layout, I guess is how you do this. There we go.
Let me go. There
And
we go.
welcome everybody that just came in, Blake Nunn and Chadwick for being here, and Lori and my wife. My wife's listening in is great. Thank you so much, Steph, for being here.
Well, here's a good picture where you can see the mufflers right there.
Okay. Let me see if I can add to stream. Yeah, that's the Gretch. And that's the Rogers hardware.
Yep. So that's pretty. Whoops. And then, I mean,
that's it. That's
a Gretsch badge. Now, unless you can't see the concert tom, it doesn't look like there's a concert tom there.
Yeah, on this one, it looks like he's not playing with it. But that is definitely Gretsch. That is some great photos too. I never saw that photo. That's
from the same show as that other picture, as this one, the Bronx, New York, Manhattan College.
Yeah. Well, there's the tom in that one.
Mm-hmm. So okay. He must have had it. You just can't really see it from this angle.
It's really, but it's that Rogers hardware again. Now, the funny thing at the Tanglewood concert, he starts with 3 cymbals, and he ends up with 2. Because the holder probably was a Gretsch, terrible hardware, just started falling over. And he just moved his
there's one bit in that concert, I forget what tune it is, where I think like Terry's ready to start. I think it's I forget if it I forget what tune it is, but like he starts playing like a thing on the guitar, and then he's like, Danny's not coming in, and you can see he kind of turns around and looks at Danny, and like Robert Lamb's like getting up from his keyboard because Danny's like screwing with the cymbal stand, and Robert Lamb gets up from the organ and like starts helping him move the cymbal, and then some guy comes out from behind the amps and is helping him move it.
Yeah.
And then Terry just kind of goes into the song. He gets impatient with him as he's like screwing with the cymbal stand.
Pretty funny, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's pretty funny.
I forget what song that's right before. It's either like Beginnings or Introduction or something like that.
Yeah. I don't think it was Beginnings, but it was definitely might have been. Does anybody really know what time it is for some reason? I think, but anyhow, howdy, Mr. Philman. Thank you for being on. So this is cool. Any other pictures from that group that you want to share?
Well, we didn't get to the other kits, so I won't show those yet. But we can look at some other pictures of the Rogers kit. This is a really good one. You can see that concert tom there.
Definitely. And it's got that gray speckle stuff inside, which was so common in a lot of drums.
And the Ludwig cowbell, or at least what I assume is the Ludwig cowbell.
Probably is. I had a Ludwig cowbell for a long time. I wish I never got rid of that. Those were like pure copper, man, those things.
And the Ambassador bass drum head without a logo on it.
And he talked a lot about using calf heads still, too.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. What is that kit? That one looks...
I think this is just the same kit, but he doesn't have the concert tom set up with it.
No, that's a Leedy. That's a Leedy kit.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, you see the
then this is probably one of those deals where like they needed a second kit because they were going somewhere. Oh, and like the date on this is 71, which I guess he wouldn't have been using a Rogers kit. So I bet you this is like a backline kit somewhere, and you can see he's got the cymbal set up the way he did in that time with the China right above the ride, and then you can see the crash over here.
His cymbals that he used, his first Zildjian endorsement was 17-inch thin crash, 20-inch medium ride. He had a 18-inch crash, and he had a 20-inch pang and the pang was that flat cymbal. It wasn't really a China, and it wasn't a swish. It had like a flat edge to it. It was a 20-inch pang cymbal with 6 rivets in it.
Yeah,
that was his first endorsement cymbals he got. That's
the tune that you hear on a Hit by Vars or whatever that song's called.
Perez, yeah. Cool.
And then you can see he's got like the cymbal taped up there.
Yeah.
I assume that's a 20-inch ride too.
And that's probably pre-endorsement too.
Now,
picking the cymbals.
There's a badge on this, or I assume that's the badge on the snare drum. Would that be a Rogers badge?
That's a Rogers Dynasonic. He had a Dynasonic wood Dynasonic, which those are collector's items today. You get those for sure.
Yeah, I don't know if I have any other pictures of that kit. There's just some other stuff in here. This, I think, is the Gretch kit. This is 71.
It looks like it could be the Slayerland kit for some reason. That looks like Slingerland lugs.
Yeah, it's probably it is probably either the black or the chrome, or not chrome, copper. It looks chrome because all that kit looks like it's chrome because all the pictures from that time are black and white. But I'm
I always
pretty
thought it
sure
was
that
chrome too, but it was
it's
copper.
yeah. That's the
Gretch Kit.
Gretch Kit. Yeah, you can see the way that's mounted is so weird.
Well, again, hardware was really terrible back then. You're talking about some really bad hardware back in that day. So, for sure. Well, let me add this back to stream for a second. So let me go back here, and this is some of the other kits. I have some of the pictures of the other kits. Go back. So this is that chrome kit or copper kit.
Yep.
With the 24-inch bass drum, 9x13, 14x14, 16x60. I had this picture as a kid. They sent me. Slingerland sent it to me. Didn't have his autograph on it though. So that's somebody else's autograph anyhow. And then there's another picture of the chrome kit, it looks like. And this is with the 4 cymbals. So he started to add all kinds of stuff at some point.
And so, I mean, what records would that have been used on? Or do you think that was just a live kit?
I think he used the black kit and the chrome kit in the studio too at different points in time. So 6 and 7 in Caribou. I think both kits were in the Caribou videos that I've seen.
Okay. So, well, I know there's a video of him playing the solo on Devil's Suite that's on YouTube where he's playing that copper kit.
Right.
But I would have thought at that time he was playing the black kit and not the copper kit.
He switched.
Unless it went back and forth.
Yeah.
So
it seemed like he had a couple kits that he used, and they kept going back and forth. And there's concert footage of him playing with the black kit. There's concert footage of him playing with the copper kit in the same era. And that was very common until 77 when you found the white kit.
Yeah.
And apparently he had more than one of these kits too, from what I understood.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because all of his stuff got eventually sold off at some point. He made reference to it in this email to me.
Okay.
He lost all that gear. But they had extra kits, so he might have had a chrome kit and a copper kit for all we know. One looks like a chrome for sure, but maybe it is the copper kit.
Yeah, I mean, there's some. I don't think I have any pictures that are. I don't know. This one, it's kind of hard to tell with the light, but you can kind of see that's
copper.
Chrome. That's the copper. It just looks like it's chrome the way the light hits it. But yeah, there's the 3 cymbals, and when he played this kit, he didn't use a concert tom.
No,
that was the other thing.
24, he always used just 3 toms with it. So
yeah, here this is a really good picture. You can even see the felt on the inside.
Yep, that is.
This is
the pang
really
symbol, and he might even add a 22 at that point. Who knows?
And what is this thing? Do you know what this is?
Huh. It's interesting.
Because this is in a couple of the different pictures that I have, and I don't know what it is. Like it looks like it was set up with the drum kit and everything.
You know, it could be a PCM microphone on a stand. It's possible.
Where's the? This is another picture. I guess this is the black kit, but this is a rare appearance of a gong.
May as well. You know,
this is from 71.
Slingerland probably gave him a gong. I mean,
yeah.
Zeppelin had a gong, so why not? I mean, Slingerland used to carry gongs. You know, it was very traditional for the drummers to get their equipment from the companies that they were endorsing, and they would get their cymbals from them too a lot of times.
Yeah, so because it's a small gong, and it looks like small gust of wind could have knocked the freaking stand over. It's so small.
Yeah, that's a wind gong.
Okay.
Like, yeah.
And then where's the other picture that I have of that? There's another from that same concert. It's a really great picture. Oh, now I can't find it. Maybe I didn't save it. There's like a picture that I had from this same concert, but it was like this guy right here took the picture from like right underneath the cymbal, and you could kind of you could see the badge on the drum real clearly, and I don't know, maybe here it is.
Slingerland, yep.
Yep, right there's the badge.
Yep, Slingerland badge, yep. Yeah. That was the kit he used a lot prior to '76 when you
Mm-hmm.
saw him.
And here's a funny picture of him wearing a Nixon mask with the headphones.
He was one of the first guys to actually mix his own sound for himself, his
Mm-hmm.
monitors. That was
I was going to bring that up earlier because that was another thing that they talk about in the documentary, and you can see it in a couple of these pictures, the big mixer that was behind him. But they talk about it like he had just started doing that, like in the 80s. You know?
No, he did that in '77. He had the mixer.
Yeah, I think it's Jimmy Pankow in the documentary. He goes he's like, you need 2 hands and 2 feet to play the drums, and once you start getting rid of one of them, you start missing stuff or something. He says something like that, and he's like, he was playing while he was mixing, and he was missing stuff. I mean, he did that for years, so I don't know where that came from either.
They really hated him. That's the sad thing. That's the sad part of that documentary. That CNN documentary was the worst.
But I mean, you can see it in a lot of
it, but I hated it.
And this is a good picture. You can see all of Ladier's stuff too. Yeah. I mean, look at all that. But then, and then when he started adding the Rototom in there too in the mid '70s.
Yep, that's when I picked up a Rototom during that period. Right. Matter of fact, I bought a Rototom right around after seeing that picture. I think one of those pictures with the Rototom on it. So I had a Vistalite kit back then before I got the Gretch kit, and I actually got my 14-inch.
See it in this one too.
Yeah, I think his Rototom was a 16 or an 18 though.
But then the concert tom kit, when that came in, I mean, this is a really cool picture of it. And he moved the Rototom over to the other side. But I mean, there you can see the mixer in the back there. I mean, that's a big mixer.
Oh yeah. And by the way, that kit, he had a couple different versions of that kit. And
I never knew that.
Yeah, that's got the long 6 tom. So It's like a 6x10, I think. And then there's an 8. And I'm not sure if it's an 8 or it looks like a 6 there. It doesn't look like the same size as the 8. He might have had 2 8s. That was the other thought. But he definitely went 10, 12, 14, 16 with a 14x14 floor tom and the 20-inch bass drum. And
yeah, it's weird that like it's only a 20-inch bass drum with that big kit.
Well, that's the reason I got a 20-inch bass drum, to be honest.
Okay.
On my Gretch kit. I went into New York to buy a Slingerland kit, and they said to me, you don't want a Slingerland kit. They're making really bad drums right now. You want a Gretch kit, but you don't want their hardware.
Okay.
And they said, you want to get a 22, 10, 12, 13, 14 double-headed on a stand, the Steve Gadd thing. And I said,
yeah.
No, I don't. I want a Danny Seraphine kit, to be honest. And what I want is I want an 8x12, a 9x13. I want a 14x14 and a 16x16 floor tom, and I want a 14x20 bass drum.
Mm-hmm.
They said, you sure you want a 14x20? Yeah, I want a 14x20. That's what I want. So,
and now what snare drum is this, Dean? Is that looks like a 14 by 6.5?
That is a 14x6.5 TDR. I don't know if it's chrome over wood. I had one that was chrome over wood that looked just like that.
Yeah, I can't really tell.
That could also be the chrome one, which was metal, steel drum. And it was
what
they called a TDR.
Okay.
The mechanism was kind of like a superphonic mechanism,
Gotcha.
Slingerland's version of it. Matter of fact, I have where is that catalog here? Let's see if I have the Slingerland catalog here. I thought I had it with me. I do have the Slingerland catalog.
And now this is interesting too. I don't know what year this is. I put on the title that it's 77, but those are electronic drums. So this is probably, or at least it looks. I mean, you can see they're plugged in. Like there's a cable for that. Maybe our electronic drum folks might know.
He used Syndrums on the 77 tour.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, he did, but he didn't use them on the kit. He came out and did a solo. The Rototom was for the solo. Lagier would spin the Rototom around. And then he came off there. Lagier's doing his percussion thing, and he came down front and was doing boosh, 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 all the electronic stuff.
Okay.
The concert was about 3 hours back then.
Wow.
I mean,
yeah, here's another good picture of the whole band, but you can kind of see the same, just the deep
tom, yeah.
Yeah.
The one he had on the Cosby Show was just the small 6-inch tom. The one where they did "If You Leave Me Now" on Bill Cosby, and they also did I think they did You Were On My Mind, or one. He did something off a 10, another one off a 10, or maybe it was. Oh, I can't remember that.
But then here's from '79, where he basically took the same kit but just didn't use the top two toms. And then again, there's the mixer.
Yeah, and that was the tour with Donnie Dacus, and
Mhm.
that's when
Yep, there he
that's when the
is.
Syndromes are from, that era.
Okay,
Put it like
gotcha.
that.
You just can't really see him there, I guess.
Yeah, they're not there. He only used them occasionally that way. I think there's only a few pictures of him using the Syndromes on the kit.
Huh. Okay.
But he was using that. That was the kit he used in '79.
Gotcha.
10, 12, 14, 16 floor tom.
Yeah.
Which is the kit I use a lot in my studio. My studio's got I don't have a 12. I have a 13.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a 10, 9 by 13, 10 by 14, and 14 by 16 tom.
Gotcha.
That's the big kit. That's probably 76, 77.
Yeah.
With the deep 6-inch. He liked to put his floor his hi-hat way out. He sat really strange, you know. With
Yeah.
his hi-hat sticking
When
way
you can
out.
tell he's like sitting really high up too. I mean, but he played a lot more match grip when he had this kit than he did traditional grip.
No doubt, yeah, no doubt about that.
It's almost like he kind of adjusted to play that kit. But this is a cool picture. This is from what I assume is Chicago 13.
That probably is not 13. No, that's not
Or
13.
later?
He was in the concert time in 13. That kit probably was somewhere between, might have been 14 if they toured at all at 14.
Okay.
Those are 80s Slareland drums with the oversized drums didn't really come in until 80, 81.
There's a picture in the book of that kit too, I think. Now I'm going to find it. We're going really off about it now.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. In the live stream, you guys are like, "Oh, what are these guys are really geeking out on me right now?"
Well, so there's some different pictures in the book. I don't know if you can. Let me stop my share here.
I want to say, CCM drummer goes, "This is by far the most comprehensive documentary."
That was the intention.
That's it in a nutshell. Why we're doing this, because I knew the first time I heard Tate play that he loved Danny Seraphine. Yeah.
So I don't know how clearly you can see that, but that's two bass drums and then a bunch of concert toms.
That's the 13 kit. That's the one he used in 13. That was
so there's another picture of it there.
Yep, that's the kit he used, and that's what it even has a 13 on the bass drum if you notice.
Mm-hmm.
That's the Chicago 13 kit. That's the one they did when they did Street Player. He also had the other thing that he had that it's not in any of the pictures. He had these go-go bells.
Okay.
Where the ride cymbal would be.
Yeah, you can see him right there by his head.
Yeah, there's the go-go
in that
bells.
one by the ride.
Yeah, and he was doing the go-go bell solo in Street Player.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've looked at these pictures, so that's cool because it's not the same setup or anything that's in that's in any of those pictures that I have. And here you can see
on there. Just want to say thank you to drum covers by Bill and Claus and S. Goldberg and Mr. Philemon and Blake, Nunn Drums, and Chadwick for being here, and Lori. Thank you all for listening, and CCM Drummer for geeking out with us. We're going to continue to geek out now, okay? It is the 10 o'clock hours. We're going to go probably another hour on this geeking out stuff. So I'll let you all know what's going on today.
So when did he start using Yamaha? Because he did use Yamaha for a hot minute.
He used Yamaha probably at the height of Yamaha becoming the drum company of the 80s. So I believe he started using Yamaha. You're probably looking 83, 84, somewhere in there. He jumped. Slareland went out the door. They just.
Mm-hmm. I mean, because I do have a picture here. This is. Let me start my share again.
Sure. Let me get off this one. I think I have to do that. Okay.
This is.
There we go.
Whoops. I even have the article linked from this gig because it was there was an article written about it because it was a benefit. But that's 82. And see Chris Pinnock there. And Bill Champlin's like hidden in the back behind Robert Lamb.
That's the tour I saw him on in
Radio
City. Yeah,
there's a cool picture from where you can see like the lower toms and this one here, and you can see Jimmy Pankow like yelling at him.
Yeah, it was the silver. That was the silver kit. So, oh wow,
all double-headed toms.
Yeah, it looks like to me it looks like a 10 by 14 and a 12 by 15, and I know he was using a 10 and a 12. So, and then he had a 16 floor tom. Interesting.
So then here, there's a picture in the book. Now it's hard to see, but trust me, it says Yamaha on the bass drum in this picture here.
Oh yeah.
On you can't even really see, and the lighting's bad.
What page is it in the book? So
226.
226. We actually have books to actually look at. Yes, we
have, and anybody else that has Street Player can look at it too.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's the double bass Yamaha kit he was using?
Yep. And that says Chicago 16, hard to say, I'm sorry. But I'm gonna bet that like, if anything, that was like the Chicago 17 tour.
Yeah, I don't think 82 was when he started playing, Chicago 16 stuff. And I saw him in 82, and he definitely had that Slingerland kit. There was no Yamaha in 82. So the earliest.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't found any pictures of the kit from the 13 tour, and I haven't found any pictures from when he toured with the Yamaha kit. So
yeah, you have the pictures of the 13 tour. The double bass concert tom kit was the 13 tour. That's it. He started playing double bass in Chicago.
Here in the 13. Book, yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, if you're talking about from the book, yeah, you have pictures in your drive of it though. But as far as Yamaha went, he started playing Yamaha 17, 18. And again, I didn't go see concerts back then. I was married and life took over, you know what I mean? So concert dollars were not there at that point in time.
Yeah.
But
and then DW was 1988. Because that picture that's right above where you can see the Yamaha, that's the DW kit.
Definitely.
And it says 1988.
I actually have it's in my let me go back to this. I'll show you a picture from the gotta find it. That's the white kit.
Yep.
Some more of the white kit. Let's see. Had to put these pictures in here. This article right here.
Oh, okay.
I had this article. This was in Rhythm Magazine. I lent it to my good friend Rich Sullivan, who's no longer with us, so I don't think I'll ever see this magazine back. But it was the only article in the 80s that I had of Danny Seraphine.
Okay.
That's when he started playing this. This was right about 88, 89. And it had a blue DW kit. And he had some of the I think they were, what were they called? Dynacord pads. And he was using this time chaser that kind of like synced up MIDI wise with the drum machine, and he would slow down and speed up and solo, and he talked about all that in that article from what I remember of it. But by the time we get to the 80s, Danny wasn't really happy with what they were doing, you know what I mean?
No,
there's no doubt about it. So I mean,
and he had a yellow DW kit too, right?
I never saw the yellow DW kit, but
really?
I wouldn't see why he wouldn't, you know what I mean? So, it's like it becomes a dark period for me when he gets into after Chicago 18. I stopped listening, to be honest.
Yeah.
19, I heard it. If it came on the radio, I heard it. I think when Napster first came along is when I started getting some of the older stuff just landed on me because Napster was ripping everybody was ripping everything off from Napster. So I did my share of taking freebies from Napster, I'm sure. I'll never admit that to the FBI, but you'll never find it either. So, but yeah, that was that article. That was the DW period, and then of course you've got the hardcore DW period at the end, which is not there for some reason. But anyhow, I digressed. So I think the drum kit, the interesting thing about his drum kit that I learned was he loved 20-inch bass drums, he loved 24s, he loved concert toms. And to end up with a concert tom kit at the end of the 70s into the 80s was not uncommon. A lot of guys had big kits, but he really always had concert toms in his kits pretty much. That was his thing. So,
and I mean, I think it really contributed to his sound and the way that he played, and I think it really helped keep a lot of the songs fresh. Like if you listen to bootlegs from 77 and on, or like I know there's a bootleg from 82 that's out now. When you listen to one of the ones that I noticed the most was, does anybody really know what time it is? Like, he had some really cool fills where he'll go right down the whole kit, and it just sounds really cool. And it's not something that you hear or think about in the original recording, but I mean, it was a way that he kept those songs fresh without them changing them up too much. Like, he just played different fills basically when there were fills needed, but because he had a different sound and a different set of toms and all that stuff, there was really a lot of expansive playing he could do.
Yeah. You know, the other thing about that time period of music was that musicians from that time period, when they got on stage, they played what they played.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't try to play the record, you know. And Danny was definitely not into playing the record. Like I told you about all the different versions of Beginnings. Every time I saw them, they always were doing a different version. They were always changing arrangements.
Mm-hmm.
It's become a lot more of a everybody plays the same thing every night kind of thing. That wasn't common for Chicago. They were an experimental band. They were probably one of the first jam bands. You know, they came up during the Jimi Hendrix period. Everything that was going on stage was experimenting, extended solos. So Danny came from that head. That was his thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think he ever fit the box of playing the arrangement. I think when he heard that they were playing with a click at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I think I heard him say something about that on one of the interviews he's done since the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which he just couldn't believe they were on click. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like, does anybody really know what time it is?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're pretty much the whole show now is done to a click. And I know, like, there's some stuff that they do play, like there's some tunes that do have backing tracks to them too. Wally's talked about that in interviews. Like, and that's one of the main reasons why they use a click, and because they have their back video synced to it too. So
it's all part of the way we do music today. I mean, everything. I mean, playing with a click is something a drummer has to do today. I mean, I went to a big church down here specifically to get that big church playing live click thing, because I didn't have a problem playing with a click in a studio, but something about playing live, I felt like there's going to be too much variables.
Yeah.
But really, that's the way kids do this today. And I mean, I think it's a detriment to some extent, because if you don't have the time in your heart and you develop that time, when you don't have a click, you kind of get lost for some reason.
One, like, I couldn't imagine doing a gig where you've got a click and an automated voice yelling out the song form to you, you know?
That's the church thing now. Yeah.
And I mean, I think cruise ships do that a lot too. There's a guy, I forget I think it's he won the one Casey Cooper contest and has blown up since then. David Cola.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he was doing a cruise ship gig a couple years ago, and he would post videos, and you could hear his click track in the background of his drumming, and you would hear, like, it would, like, you know, bridge in 4 bars. Like, it would, like, tell you the form of the song as you were playing through with the click. I mean, pretty interesting, but, like, I would just find that way too distracting. You know, I would rather listen and hear the bridge come than have an automated robotic voice tell me. I mean, it's probably beneficial, but I don't know, it would just stress me out too much.
Well, I will tell you, from the church gig perspective, a lot of times the chords don't change. Just the melody changes and the tom patterns change or something.
Yeah, or something like that.
And because the music is so 1 6 4 5 2, you know, those chords all the time always rearranged. Like, let's just flip the 4 and the 5 on this verse, you know, from the chorus. It's really no difference other than that flip. You kind of get lost. You don't even know where you're at. So it is nice to have the MD track in there with the click, but it is stifling too if that's all you learn is your part and you don't really know music.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're taking away. You're losing the playing music thing. And that's the interesting thing about Danny's parts is they played together in the studio. So all those early records, all the way up to probably 17, 18, those albums were made with them playing together in the studio, getting their sound. Rhythm even if they were going to overdub the horns in the vocals or redo the vocals, they were going in there and they were cutting things live a lot of times. So that's a whole different vibe, and I think that's what's the interesting thing about music is when you play that way, that's what translates on stage. And I think Danny never got out of that head. And I don't think he really adapted to being a studio drummer. He played on albums, but he wasn't a studio drummer. He wasn't Jeff. He wasn't Carlos Vega that were like, or JR that are like craftsmen of the studio. You know, JR, you know, during, as a matter of fact, JR told me this, Paul Lime told me this. I talked to both those guys, that it wasn't uncommon back there in the late 70s, early 80s to play a pass of just groove, like on Ain't Nobody.
Yep.
He just did Ain't Nobody. And there's all these tom things in there. All those toms are overdubbed. Every single one of them. He's just locking the groove thing. And then he came back and did a pass of toms. That's why the toms aren't even in the right kind of places.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, let's throw them here. This just sounds cool.
Well, that's like the biggest example I find of that is when you listen to Hey 19, because that was the first time that a drum machine and you know, the movement of drums was used on a pop tune like that. You know, you can hear that Rick Morata's just playing the groove, and I mean, who knows? It could be a bar of the groove and it's just looped. But when you hear that fill come in, it's layered over top of the drum groove. The drum groove does not stop. He doesn't stop and go it's and the groove keeps playing through the drum fill. Yeah, and that's pretty apparent in a bunch of the tunes from that record too. I think Glamour Profession is like that. I'm pretty sure Gad laid down the basic groove and then overdub drum fills. And that's like around 1980, right? Yep.
That's all that same time period where the drum machine was starting to come in and sneak into the studio, and it changed everything. It really changed the way we started to think about music.
Yep.
You know, and I don't think Danny adapted to that very well. That wasn't his thing. He was a jazz guy. He was like a jazz rock. He's like, I'm a jazz rock drummer, he says. It is. That's what he did. But to have that mindset to say, okay, I'm going to play over top of this and be okay with it, you had to have that mindset of like, I'm making music. They're paying me for the session. I don't have anything invested in this band other than I'm getting paid double scale on this session here, and I want to do the best part they want.
Yeah, but I think for them to say that he didn't adapt to it and that he didn't he might have not accepted it, but full force he adapted to it and was able to play on those records before they fired him. You know?
Oh yeah. I think the truth of the matter is they didn't like his business, and I think that's what he tried to write in his book, that he was getting a little too deep into the business where they didn't want him, so they got rid of him. You know, and it was a lot of bad blood. I felt, you know, when he came back in 2006 and had a new start on life, you saw the joy come back, you know. But he pretty much said he was almost down and out, like he wasn't coming back, kind of thing.
Yeah, that part of the book is hard to read, let alone the part where he talks about Terry and all that stuff. But
yeah, well, the Terry thing was very sad.
Yeah. My favorite part of the book though is when he talks about that hairpiece. That's hilarious.
Think about playing live shows, man.
It would have been so funny to see that, or for there to be video of when whatever that gig was that they were at, where he thought his hairpiece was going to fly off his head and go into the audience.
Well, Tris Imboden had the same problem, by the way. Just saying, Tris was another hair guy.
Yeah,
he had hair implants and all kinds of stuff. You know? Yeah, and it was image. You know, being in a rock band during that time, I was not the right image for the rock band I was in 1990. I was too big. I wasn't thin and lanky and had the right color hair, and you know what I mean?
Whatever else, yeah.
And it was all about image back in 1988, 89, 90. It was image. And to this day, it's still image. But we have this strong classic rock presence now. So that we accept the Stones looking like they're archaic getting on a stage. We'll pay a big money for that. You know what I mean? Or pay for Chicago to be on stage, you know, as not even Chicago, as like being 3 members of the band left, you know, that kind of thing. But that's all to keep that music alive, I guess. And the boomer generation has done a great job of keeping their music alive. We made the most money in music. There's no doubt about it. I don't know how you young guys are going to make money, but that's another rabbit hole for another day. We have to go back to that original statement I made here, which is today is Danny Seraphine in Chicago questions only. So don't go down rabbit holes, Earl.
Yeah. I saw some other questions. I don't know if any of them are Chicago questions, but I know when we were going through the pictures, there was some stuff that passed by. I just want to make sure we covered everything.
Yep.
Klaus says the Ludwig gold tone cowbell for sure. Yeah.
Yep. Let's see. Lori Jones said, for reasons I don't know, Chicago was not big here in the UK. Okay, well that probably makes sense.
Well, there is something to be said about that, because I know in the documentary they say they toured over they had toured over there, and I think they talk about it when they were talking about Danny, because that was like the infamous gig where he apparently like played everything really slow and this and that. I think Chadwick was watching a bunch of videos on my channel. I think that's what he's talking about.
Oh, is that what he's talking about?
He's talking. I have a video on my channel where we were jamming in my old teacher Bob's drum room in his basement. That's what he's talking about.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, because I think it's Jimmy that said Terry like insulted the UK or something like that when they were on the '77 World Tour. Wow. Like I don't know if it was a thing I don't know if he said something to the press about the UK or what, but he said something, and then like it hurt the band's image over there for a while. And I think in the late '80s, when they were finally going back over there for their first tour, was when Danny played terribly at whatever gig that caused the down spiral of his quote unquote playing abilities
with his jet lag and everything.
Yeah,
that's crazy. So, hey, Spiro Drums and Daddy Drums are here now. And what record should I check out to get into Chicago? So, let's talk about favorite records. That's a good segue into our favorites. So, what would you recommend to Spiro as far as what would be the album's starting point? I know which one I would recommend, but what would you recommend as a starting point?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's hard because, like, do you want to just say CTA because that's what everybody else got introduced to? Because it's certainly not the same Chicago sound that you get on what is my favorite record, which is 5. Like, I think 5 is like the pinnacle as far as Danny's concerned, but I think the rest of the band too. I mean, there's so much great improv, and all the songs are very different, but they all are very cohesive and together in that record. I mean, Chicago 2 is really nice, but that's a double album. So unless you're looking to listen to a lot of stuff, I would say Chicago 5.
I love Chicago 5, but I think you hit on something here too with Chicago 6. Chicago 6, I said, was my favorite album. I went down and I was listening to all the albums, and I threw Chicago 6 on the record player.
Okay.
It was all nasty with the clicks and pops, but it brought me back to when I was a kid playing it. And there's not one song on Chicago 6 that I don't like. I mean, and there's a couple I need to do. I just remembered. In Terms of 2, that's one of them. You know, Hollywood, Jenny, What's This World Coming To? Forget about Feeling Stronger Every Day and Just You and Me. I mean,
yeah,
those are great. And my wife is still here at 25.
Oh, wow.
Her favorite album.
We didn't bore her away?
No. Thank you, Steph. I love you. Yes, Chicago 2 is a great starting album too. My wife's favorite album is Chicago 2. I'm not going to get into why it's that way, but definitely Chicago 2. We will, if you want to know why, you just got to watch the original Danny Seraphine show of mine, Drum Talk, Danny Seraphine. You can go to that and you can find out why my wife loved 25 or 64 and the double album. That was her first album, I think. That and CTA.
Gotcha.
So, but Chicago 6, yeah, it's a great one. But Chicago 5 is, you're talking about the difference of recording in New York City or recording in the Caribou Ranch. The Caribou Ranch became the thing for James William Garuccio, who was the guy that produced them and found them.
5 wasn't recorded at Caribou Ranch?
Nope, it was recorded in New York City.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. I thought that 5 was the first record they recorded at Caribou Ranch.
Nope, that was recorded in Columbia Studios, I think, in New York City.
Okay.
And that was the period of time where Danny was taking lessons from Papa Joe Jones on brushes, and he hung out with Elvin and those guys in the jazz clubs. That was that period of time. So Chicago 5 has a lot of that influence on it. And then Chicago 6 is when they built the studio out in Caribou, and 6, 7, 8, and probably 10 and 11 were probably recorded at Caribou.
Okay.
And then all Hot Streets forget about it. It's a different producer. It's Phil Ramone. It's probably L.A. You know, it's somewhere else. You know, but
I saw Keith's comment. I just want to make sure. Am I too loud or is Earl too soft? So I saw that.
I think it's me. If I don't lean into the mic, you know, somebody said
okay.
Because
I saw Chad.
More gain.
I saw Chad said something earlier. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't too loud. I'm not using a mic. I'm just talking through my computer. So.
Yeah, I mean, I sound loud to me, so that's why I back off a little bit. But I think that you know, this is a condenser mic. You know.
Gotcha.
You know, blah blah blah. But yeah, 5 is one of my favorite albums too. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, what's your favorite track from 5?
My favorite track is, well, that's a hard one to say favorite. There's 3 that at the top of the list: State of the Union and Hit by Varese. Those 2. Then
yeah,
Dialogue,
I think you know. I have mine all written down here. My favorite from 5 is probably Now That You've Gone.
Oh, that's interesting.
That Tom thing is really cool, and the way it plays in with the bass part.
You covered that one too, didn't you?
Yep. Yeah. 5 is probably the one that I'm closest to having fully covered. I think I only have to do a couple more. I don't have to do Saturday in the Park and State of the Union and like 1 or 2 more.
That's cool.
But yeah, I'm hoping to do that and get that one done soon. So
I have not finished many albums except for one. Steely Dan Asia album, believe it or not.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I have all of the Asia covers done. I'm going to boost myself a hair because everybody keeps telling me I'm too soft for some reason.
Okay.
So let's try this. I still want to blow it out.
So we did 5. Do you want to go back to CTA and kind of go through and talk about your favorites from those and go up through?
Yeah, let's go through the whole thing. Am I louder now, guys? Is everybody happy with my volume now? I just boosted myself up a little bit. CTA.
And if anybody else wants to say what their favorites from the records are too,
love to hear. Know. That'd be a great idea. Matter of fact, we'll take Spiro down. Put myself up more. Thank you, Stephanie. So I'm going to definitely do that. Take this stupid thing off. Is it louder now? Probably is. Okay. All right. So let's talk about CTA. My favorite song on CTA for sure is Beginnings, no doubt about it. Beginnings is my favorite song of all Chicago songs, probably, I would say, is Beginnings. And then the song Listen. So
okay.
What's yours?
My favorite is Question 67 and 68. His groove on that is like very, very deep, and he just has a really great pocket. And I love all the fills that he plays on that one. They happen in the right spots. And, you know, he adds a couple extras in the last verse that just kind of, you know, heighten it up. I mean, a lot of what I love about Danny is the way that he structures his playing in songs, even though his fills, like, especially on this one, sound sporadic. It's like there was a purpose and intent on why he was doing what he did, you know?
Oh yeah. And
the fills that he adds in that one are really great.
No, I agree with you on that completely. I think the triplet thing he did, it was a pattern I kind of learned how to do, going left, right, left, back and forth to the tom. That opening fill.
Yeah.
I got to put the pop screen on. I'll be popping the heck out of everybody's ears. But yeah, that's a great song. Awesome song. Beginnings for me is that it was always that breakdown section. That was the thing with me in Beginnings. So I'm gonna do one other thing, make an adjustment.
Okay. Yeah, no worries.
It's a mix thing.
Yeah, for Chicago too. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just testing the mix. It has to do with the headphone mix. That's
gotcha.
More Earl, you are really soft. That is not good. Boy, I'm still too much. All right, let me try a little more.
Can you try and adjust it in StreamYard? If you go into the cam and mic settings and then go under audio, it should say mic volume and you can move it there.
Internal microphone. Yeah, it does seem a little low there. Oh, no wonder. Now.
Too loud. How's that?
That brought you way down.
Now I'm way down?
Yeah.
Really? That's not cool.
Oh, well, now, okay, hold on.
Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2.
Now so I don't think you were on your mic that entire time. I think you're on your mic now.
I am on my mic now, and I know what the problem was.
And you're only in my left ear.
That has to do with my setup, by the way, unfortunately. But I'm fine.
Is your mic only going mono? Because I'm only getting you in my left ear.
Yeah, I'm only going mono. I only get you in my left ear too, unfortunately.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. But we'll have
Bill
to
says
deal
you
with
sound.
that.
Bill says you sound great now. So
okay, thank you.
We shall
Wow.
continue.
I wish I knew. Well, Chad tried to help us years ago. So I think we've been at this for about 2 years right now, right?
Yeah, an hour and a half in.
Not too loud, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, cool.
I switched from the iPad. I've been using the iPad for this thing for a while now, but I thought I was going to run out of iPad, number one, and because I was up so early this morning, and number two, I thought all the cool things you can do from the desktop.
The computer, yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, very cool.
Okay.
So let's get back to it. Chicago 2. What's your favorite on Chicago 2?
My favorite from Chicago 2 is In the Country.
Good choice. Good choice.
I love It Better End Soon. The flute improv and the way they all build that with Walt is really cool. And the multiple piece thing. I mean, of course, everybody loves Make Me Smile. But I tried to go against the grain a little bit. Maybe for those that might not be as into the deep tracks as we are, might find something new. So
yeah,
that was one of the early covers that I did, and I really enjoy everything that Danny plays on that tune.
That's a good one. Mine would be Wake Up Sunshine. It's very poppy, but I always liked it. Kind of bouncy, but it's got a nice shuffly thing going on with that one.
Yeah, it's interesting on that one because he's very hesitant when he comes back in. It's not completely in time when he does his fill to go back into the, kind of like after the I can't have you hiding. There's a big hesitation, but they're all really together on it, which just shows that they were all doing it live and
in the room.
It was probably either pre-planned or they were just really together with him when he would do that fill to come back in.
I don't think there was a lot of pre-planning. I think it was a thing that happened in the studio and they left it.
Mm-hmm.
That's been my experience of being a guy that's recorded in that other environment, is you do something and it all sounds locked together and you go, okay, that's good enough. Let's keep it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of the records that we're talking about were all made that way. It's not something you get away with today. I mean, today I did a session a couple weeks ago and it was kind of like, I played it and I know they're going to grid me. It's like, well, you're going to grid me anyhow, so don't worry about it. So I'm not that far off. Just do what you want, fix what you want,
Well, it's almost better when you're doing things that are remote, like.
They were here. They actually.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, I was playing with the vibe, and I was hoping they're going to keep me in the vibe, but in actuality, I know they're going to grid me. He grids everything, But I did do this brush thing. I don't think they're going to touch the brushes. They said he loved the brush thing. But the brush thing was completely like, it was a pop kind of thing, and I was playing like eighth groove on the snare drum and the backbeat on the... Maybe they'll leave it alone. It'd be nice if they left it alone because it'll probably add the air to that song that it needed. I'm only in this one little piece. Like it's like a chorus and a bridge, and then I'm out. I'm done.
Gotcha.
So... But music's made differently back then. So I think that's what you heard. And that's what drives me crazy about doing a lot of the new songs, a lot of the old songs, in like taking the drums out, is that the timing is that far off. And what I've learned how to do is build a click in Logic using X-Tracks, the drum groove, as the click builder. And it's kind of interesting. And sometimes I even do cheaters to get myself back into some of those songs. I'll put like 3 or 4 beats, drop them in so I know that I got how to come in, because nothing is exactly locked like they are today. So music was different. Did we do Chicago 3?
No.
Let's do Chicago 3.
Okay, so I have Approaching Storm. I really enjoy that tune.
Wow. That's really Chicago 3 is probably the least album I listened to.
It seems like the one that everybody forgets. I mean, I love Lowdown. I think his approach on that song is really great. and he plays some great stuff on that. That 16th note groove is really nice, but the approaching storm, just the way that song builds at the end of the record is really nice, and I enjoy that one.
Yeah, that's the album with Motorboat to Mars, right? And
yep. And that goes right into Free, and
Free is probably the standout to me. I mean, Low Down is the hit. I mean, Free is the standout, but the song that really gets me is Happy Because I'm Going Home.
Okay.
I always like that song. The melody kind of stays with me. I did a cover of Happy Because I'm Going Home too, but it used to mean a lot to me because I used to do a lot of travel, and I would send that to my wife before we send her that.
Oh gosh, that's nice.
A video of the song here.
Yeah, I mean, I love Hour in the Shower too. Like, it's a really simple song, but I mean, it's more of a Terry song than it is anything. But I mean, the way that that song builds through all the different parts and whatnot is really nice. The brushes groove that he plays, like, it's a very kind of out there and different, but it's a really cool groove.
Yeah, you could see that he was starting to try to bring in those influences of what he was studying back then. That's exactly what was going on. That's really cool. Welcome, Drums and Drummer channel from Brisbane, Australia. Thank you for being here today.
At 12:30 a.m. in Australia. Wow.
Wow. Yeah, I know. Wow.
We're keeping you up.
Sorry about that. Carnegie Hall. Have you ever listened to Carnegie Hall?
I've not listened through. I will say I've not listened through all the live stuff that I should, but that's something I want to get into more. Have you seen everything about?
Are you going to buy everything? I don't. You haven't done that yet. That's pretty good.
No, I have. I don't know the price point for that remaster. I don't know.
Yeah, that's why I was going to ask you that question. $150 to listen to the worst album they ever recorded live. I don't think so.
I was reading. I'll have to send it to you if you didn't see it. It's in that one Facebook group. It was actually one of the more interesting discussions because that main Chicago Facebook group is so annoying.
Yeah,
like, it's just like people posting random pictures. It's like, do you not realize that like nobody cares that you're like posting like when like people just post like a picture of Peter Cetera and like it has the Getty Images like thing on it. It's like, I don't know why people feel they need to post that in, and like they don't say anything. It's just a picture.
Yeah,
it just like clogs up your feed. But there was a guy that posted a bunch of stuff that the dude that is working with them now and has remastered it. He kind of talked about his process and everything, which kind of made me appreciate the process and want to listen to it now. They like fixed the first tune that they had played. I forget what it was that they never included in the record because it was like a disaster. He said that you could hear in Danny's drum tracks when they got back together, he was like, Christ, like when they had finally got it back together, you could hear him like within relief, like that they had gotten back on track after they were so out of sync when they started. But I don't know if it comes out on streaming, I'll listen to it.
Yeah.
But like, I don't intend on buying a box set for that much money. I do have all of Carnegie Hall. I've just never had the time to sit down and listen the whole way through it. That's something I need to do at some point. So I can't really comment on it. So
yeah, Carnegie Hall never was a great album by the critics, for audio fidelity reasons. And Live in Japan was a much better album. It was recorded much better. So I think the problem was the venue, believe it or not. Carnegie Hall was set up to be, live orchestral music. It wasn't really set up for a rock band. And I don't think the room helped them at all.
Yeah.
And I think, of course, archaic monitoring systems back then, floor monitors. I mean, they still were not using professional PAs like we use today. I mean, today you do a live album, everything's done with in-ears, and everything's done with in-ears on a regular show. Forget about if they're recording it or not.
Yeah.
So the whole world has changed considerably, I think. But I couldn't imagine buying that. So I guess you didn't listen to Live in Japan either very much.
No, I was just going through studio stuff. I've not gotten through as much live stuff as I need to. So
there's a lot of it there too. I'll show you a classic album. By the way, I have a couple versions of this one. This is the first bootleg that was put on an album. It's the Chicago Transit Authority Collector Edition, live in concert. This one was from the 70s. There's another version of it, the Toronto something concert. It's the same album, by the way. I
Okay.
have both of them somewhere.
Oh,
I
wow.
just didn't find it. But yeah, they call California Purple's the Purple Song. So,
When I know, like on that bootleg that I found on YouTube from the '77 tour, like the one tune is just entitled Jam, and I think it's just Mongo. I think it's Mongo Nucleosis, but it's like 9 minutes long,
right?
And I think it goes into a drum solo, and then they go into 25 or 624.
Yeah.
So, but I think it's just called Jam.
Yeah. They played some interesting stuff on the 77 tour. They played Gotta Get You Into My Life by the Beatles, which I thought they were going to be in the Sgt. Pepper movie, the terrible Sgt. Pepper movie that was made with the Bee Gees and
with Peter Frampton.
And it ended up being Earth, Wind, and Fire playing Gotta Get You Into My Life, their own version of it. But Chicago's version was kind of like the Beatles off Revolver.
Okay.
So it was really a cool version, and I think I bought Revolver because I remember Gotta Get You Into My Life with Chicago in '77. That was one of the reasons I picked up Revolver eventually. Eventually I got all the Beatles stuff, but
yeah,
I wasn't a big Beatles guy early on. It took a while to become a Beatles guy over life, pretty much. So we did 5 and 6.
Yep.
Brings us to 7.
I don't know. Are we both going to agree that Devil's Suite is the tip top?
No, because it's the funny thing. I like Danny's. I like the Terry Kath going off stuff, and I like Danny going off. That was the jazz, the last hurrah of their jazz stuff. You know what I mean? But he played a great solo and all that. Don't get me wrong, but it's not my favorite. The things that stick with me from that album are still my favorite songs. I've always loved I've Been Searching So Long. The words of that song has been one of those things that is stuck in my brain philosophically. Even as a child, it kind of got in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, of course, the other one being Happy Man is really another great song. And the one that Danny didn't play on that album, Skinny Boy, which was a guy named Ross Salamone, played drums on it because he played on Robert Lamb's whole Skinny Boy solo album. It's okay for Robert Lamb to have a solo album, just not Pizza Terror.
Yeah.
But let's not get into that one. But those are the songs that I'm a song guy. See, I choose songs. Even though I loved Danny's jazz rock stuff with Devil's Suite, it wasn't the thing that I played all the time.
Well, yeah, it's like my favorite from 6 is What's This World Coming To, but like I love to play along to Just You and Me because it's like the perfect drum part. Like it couldn't be a better drum part.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No doubt about it. What he's doing with his foot, playing, the hi-hat with the foot, which
it's very different, but it works so well.
Yeah. And if you're going to play that song, you got to do the foot thing. And he's such a jazz drummer. He's got the jazz drumming mindset. And I think that's what I love about Danny Seraphine. That's always been my thing.
Yep.
Of course, the thing I didn't love about Danny Seraphine that hurt me early on was his time was really not as good as it should have been. And I think they took too many liberties, and probably it had to do with the fact that, they had that other life that they like to mess in, that world that was not good, which being a rock star in the 70s meant being in that world, unfortunately.
Yep.
So, but let's move on to Chicago 8. Another album I really like a lot.
Yeah, my favorite from this one is Old Days. I love to play along to Old Days too. It's not the most like out there, but it's like you said, it's a song,
Oh yeah, and I love Old Days too. I did a cover of that a long time ago, playing over top of the drum part. That was tough. I might do that one again someday. You know which one I love is I've Never Been in Love Before. And I did a cover of it, and it got blocked. I cannot get that on YouTube. It's on my Instagram channel.
What a weird song to get blocked.
I to this day, I can't figure out why. I really have no idea why that one gets blocked. It's not a hit. I've had Just You and Me blocked before. And then they let it back on, and then they blocked it again, and then they let it back on.
I think I did last spring. I did Ain't It Blue. And I think that got blocked on Instagram when I put a clip of it on there, but it didn't get blocked on YouTube.
Yeah, you can't. It's no rhyme or reason to this stuff anymore. There's just no rhyme or reason to it.
Yeah.
So we're working our way down to Chicago 17, Bill. But we're only on 8, so you got about 9 more.
We'll get there.
We promise. Before we end this live stream, we're gonna do that. Let's see. Chicago 9 is the greatest hit, so there's not really a bad song on there except "Color My World," in my opinion. But it's just. Even "Color My World's" got some beautiful things to it, so we'll pick on that. Chicago 10. What's your thoughts on Chicago 10?
"You Are on My Mind." Doesn't get much better than that.
That was the top of my list. Was "You Are on My Mind."
Yeah,
so.
that'll be the first cover that everybody sees on this guy.
Oh, you're gonna have fun with that one.
Yeah, that's in the can. So
can't wait.
Look forward to it.
Can't wait to hear that big concert Tom Kit.
Yeah,
blowing out songs. That'll be fun. Chicago 11.
Mine is "Take Me Back to Chicago." We talked about that one a little earlier.
That's a great song. Mine happens to be "Little One."
Okay, yeah.
And I liked it before I had children, which is kind of crazy, but
I'm sorry.
Yeah, "Little One" is about Danny missing his kids. I actually read that part of the chapter in the book too. But I love the song before it. I don't know why. I think I was growing up with a dad who was a truck driver. Maybe that's what I hoped my dad thought of me. I think my dad did think that of me. So my dad's been gone for a while, quite some time now. But,
yeah, I mean, both, this is the first one where you kind of get more of the song drummer side of Danny than the jazz drummer side of Danny. He really, once he started using the big kit and everything, it was less about playing with the high-pitched toms and doing Buddy Rich type fills and Gene Krupa and Papa Joe Jones type fills.
Yeah.
He had the way the way "Take Me Back to Chicago" is structured couldn't be any better. The way Shaka Khan is at the end of that and everything. But the way he builds throughout, his fills are never distracting or too much or too little. Everything about that song to me is just really perfect.
Yeah, that's a great.
I'm a sucker for Odd Time too. So.
Oh yeah, and he was good at Odd Times. He really played Odd Times well.
Yeah,
so I "Take Me Back" was right next door to that one. Definitely. And it was the beginning of him starting to write. That was the beginning of his writing career. I don't think he really wrote anything other than "Airy Sweet." I think he got a writer credit on that. But
yeah,
that was the first time he really launched out there on that. Now, once we get past 11, Terry Cat's gone now. Now we're into Hot Streets. That was a tough album. I mean, I remember when it came out, we all wanted to hear it, but there was a lot of pain in not having Terry there and having the guitarist and vocalist. Even seeing them in concert, that I saw them immediately. Their first couple weeks of their touring, I think they were in New York City. So, what's your favorite song on that one?
I really like "Hot Streets," the title track. It's a good tune. I mean, I like "Alive Again" too. They're both very good, heavy-driven songs.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't have as much to say about all these records. You know what I mean? It's just they're just all different to me. I'm sure you feel the same way. I'm sure some
they
people
are, and you'll hear that at the
but
end when we get to the end stuff. I'm like, there's
I
not
don't
a lot there. But Hot Streets, I would say "No Tell Lover." I like that one. That's a strange one too. And "Alive Again." Those definitely there. 13. I was right at the end of disco. That's how I kind of put a period on it. So they did their disco album of after Saturday Night Fever came out. They do the disco album.
Yeah.
So
well, that was the other thing I was going to say. I mean, a lot of these tunes, everything starts to sound a lot more similar. It was like they kept trying to go for the same thing over and over. Like almost every tune has some sort of, double-handed 16th note pattern in it that Danny kind of made sound really cool the way he played it and the way he, even if you listen to when they play "Along Comes a Woman" live, the way he played that pattern, he really swung it and made it sound pretty cool and doesn't sound like the record.
Yeah. Well, he always put a little of that swing in everything. So that's another part of Danny's playing.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite from the 13 is "Runaway," but
mine is "Life Was What It Is." That's the one I liked. And that was the Lager song. He wrote that one.
Yeah.
So, 14, the the missing album, but I always liked 14, so I actually have a few songs I liked on that one. Which one for 14?
Yeah, I like Manipulation.
Yep,
First
me
track.
too. That's the one for me too. I mean, it's got the odd time groove thing. I got all those Tom fills. You should do that on the concert, Tom Kit.
Yeah.
You'll have a lot of fun.
That's one on the list for the big kit. So.
All right, now we get into 15 was no greatest hits for some reason. They had nothing else to do with themselves.
I think that was a contract thing with Columbia.
Yeah.
Columbia wanted to get rid of them, but they had something else due, and so they just did a greatest hits, and that was that.
Yeah. So 16 is the David Foster era comes to life. I actually like this album. There was a couple things on it I really liked. What was yours on that one?
Yeah, Chains is my favorite.
It's driving.
It's yeah, I was gonna say it's very driving.
Yeah.
You know, it's probably the most driving on the record. I mean, I love his playing on the back half of Hard to Say I'm Sorry on Getaway. Getaway is probably like my favorite moment from that album in general. I love the horn melody on that.
Mine is Follow You, Follow Me. So
okay.
It's called Follow Me. That song actually, it was right in my relationship with my soon-to-be fiancé wife. It was right at the right time, and we saw them do that song live. That matter of fact, when you posted the '82 concert, and I heard that, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I forgot about this song." You know, and I remembered how important it was to me. You know, and in my listening. So that's the song that I've covered that one. I really enjoyed that song.
Yeah, well, and like I forgot to say this about Chains, but I like in a lot of these tunes too, like I had said earlier, like I wonder how much things they did post recording to edit the drum parts or edit the other parts. Like I wonder what he actually played for that like cross stick sounding thing in the verses on Chains. Like I wonder how if it was overdubbed or what he actually played there, because it's a cool sounding minimal groove and it works really well, but
yeah,
you know, who knows what they actually did to get that.
Well, like I said, that's the beginning of the layering of drum parts, so there's a good possibility he overdubbed. But you know, 25 or 64's got 2 drum parts on it.
Yep.
So I mean, they've been doing studio tricks on their albums too, but so probably there's a studio trick, and I don't think there was samples yet in '82 that would have been a rim click sample. By the time you get to 84, 86, 80, you know, those other albums, now you got samplers and pads, and everybody was using the same rim click sample for everything, and everything started to change, is what I'm saying. So
yeah.
All right, now we're looking at 17 hard. What's your take on that one?
I will stick with Along Comes a Woman because I really like the way that he played that tune live. It's very driving, and it's just a really great song. I love Cetera's vocals on it too, and that's it.
This is where I start to kind of fade, you know.
Yeah.
Hard Habit to Break, only because that's the song I remember the most from that album. You know what I mean? And now I'm heavily into MTV. This is the MTV time. That was their first video, I think, was that one.
I thought they did a video for Hard to Say I'm Sorry.
If they did, it wasn't because of MTV at that point. That would have been because MTV they were starting to make videos. Like MTV was taking any video in '81. MTV was started in '81, and the cable companies did not adapt or adopt MTV initially. So there was a small handful of cable companies that had it. My company, I worked in the cable industry for 35 years, so I remember them adding MTV to the lineup. Small little cable company, and that was like the end of '82. They added it, and then MTV couldn't find videos. So if they did one, it was one of those promo videos. After Michael Jackson's Billie Jean, everybody started making videos in the classic Hollywood style, and that's what that video is. That's them hiring a production company for $100,000 and doing a video of them, you know, girls all over the place,
acting out, whatever.
You know, yeah. But prior to that, those videos were kind of promotional, so they were cheap. Even, you know, so it's kind of interesting that, you know, the timeline of things. You know, I remember the timeline. everything else off that album I don't remember, to be honest.
I mean, Stay the Night's a great track too, but that's Jeff Porcaro. That's probably my favorite song on that album, but we're talking Danny, so I mean, it's kind of ironic that that's Jeff Porcaro, and
I didn't know which album that was on. I didn't know if that was on 17 or if that was on
that's
18.
on 17.
Yeah.
And You're the Inspiration's on 17 too, and that's Carlos Vega.
Yeah, and I always hated You're the Inspiration. I hated playing it at weddings too, and we used to have to play that occasionally. I hated that song. But Carlos Vega, I love Carlos's playing, don't get me wrong, So it had nothing to do with Carlos Vega or Danny. It just was the song was so soupy, and I don't know. 18, they brought back Chicago 18. They brought back 25 or 64, I believe, right?
Yeah,
that was terrible. I did not like that song. That was the worst.
And I mean, they played that live too. That way, they played that version of it live.
Yeah, I don't know why. That was stupid.
I just kind of listened through and picked and chose. Like I guess this one, I just kind of was going through. So I have It's All Right from Chicago 18.
I have If She Would Have Been Faithful, only because it has some kind of significant meanings to me. You know what I mean? And it was something I picked up years later after that album came out. It had nothing. It was during the Napster era, believe it or not.
Yeah.
I kind of downloaded a bunch of stuff during the Napster era, and that was one of them, and it kind of stuck. And it has some significant meaning to me and my wife. But not that my wife was not faithful. It has nothing to do with that at all. But it's not. That's nothing like that at all. But it has to do with other things. It has nothing to do with the she. But other than that, I can't think of a song on that album I even listened to. I think I bought the album and I never even barely opened it, to be honest. By the time we get to 19 to 21, it's like there was a 20, wasn't there? Was there a 20?
It was Greatest Hits.
All right. So that's why I go 1921. I knew there was something weird there.
Well, and 21's Tristan Bowden.
Yeah.
So we're at the last one.
Yeah,
we made it.
I mean, we made
19. I really like Runaround. I like Bill Champlin's vocal on that. I mean, it's almost like there's almost not that much to choose from. Like 19 was the one where I was listening through. I was like, oh my gosh, all of these songs are like almost the same tempo. The drums sound exactly the same. The grooves are exactly like the only thing that stands out are the vocals. And I love Bill singing. I disagree with the way he sang some of the original hits, but he's his own man, and he sounds really nice in a lot of the stuff on 19. So Runaround's my favorite.
Well, Bill was taking over the band at that point. He was writing a lot of stuff. Again, they were just trying to keep the hit machine going.
Yep.
They wanted to make a lot of
money. You
money.
can't blame them for that.
No, you can't blame them for it. But they lost their soul in the process, I think. And that's what happened, unfortunately. They became a great tour band. Tris Imboden, great drummer. I mean, my favorite Christmas album is Amy Grant's Christmas album, and then the next one is Chicago 25. And my kids had me I blasted that. I blasted every Christmas still to this day.
And that's the first one, right?
The first one.
Gotcha.
That's the one.
And they screwed around with like how that got released, right? If I'm correct.
Yeah, the first one was I had it on CD. I think that's where I had it on. I don't remember the backstory. Hey, Michael Perry, nice to have you on. Yeah, I mean, I don't remember the backstory to the Christmas album. All I remember was it was good and I liked it, so I played it. And that's a tribute to Tris Imboden. I liked Night and Day. I thought that was a great album.
Yeah.
Different arrangements of big band tunes. Tris Imboden played incredible drums on it. They were trying to find some of their soul, but again, I think. When I eventually heard Stone of Syphilis,
I mean that record doesn't sound like a Chicago record to me. Like I haven't listened through all of that record, but what I have listened to, it just sounds like some random record. I don't know.
Yeah, by the time I heard of that album, I was on news groups and into AOL chat rooms and stuff, on Chicago, very short period of time. It was mostly news group stuff. When the internet first came out, for beginning of AOL 2.0, and all that good stuff. And you now had access to different things and information. And I heard of that album, and I wanted to hear it, but it never came out. And then when it finally did come out, I thought it was a big disappointment. So I was like, well, this isn't anything. And they never came out with anything. I mean, the Live 26 album was good. Tris was playing his parts. He was playing all Danny's parts and did his own little thing on everything, and I love Trist's playing. Great player.
And the Soundstage record that just came out a couple years ago is great too. You know, that's the one chance you get to hear Jeff Coffey with the band, and he sounds great in full form. You know,
he was a great addition to the band after Jason Sheff left.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, but it was. I think the reason why Tristan Coffey left at the same time had a lot to do with the politics of the band, probably. You know, and enough's enough. You know, and I think Trist had gone through cancer and all the other stuff that he went through in his life. So
when he just gotten remarried and
he got remarried. Yeah, life changes. You know what I mean?
I mean, the only thing that Wally's done with them, I mean, on drum set that is, because I know he played percussion on some of the stuff on Now. But I mean, I enjoy the most recent Christmas record.
Yeah,
you know,
I think Wally's a great drummer. I mean, I remember him playing with Santana. I remember him playing with Stevie Winwood. He's extremely precise. He can play anything at all. His solo album's great. I listened to his solo album a couple times. Great drummer, you know. And he loves Danny, but he's playing what they need to have here today. That's what he plays what they need today. And I think the horn players basically took the Danny out of the band. When they kicked Danny out of the band, and they basically told Tris, don't play all those parts exactly the same way. And then slowly but surely they got on click and arrangements, and you know, they lost their soul. I think that's the only thing I could say. After 50 years, they sound like a big club date band. I said it. See, I waited till the very end to say that.
Yeah, I mean, I love Wally's presence and energy. You know, I met him at PASIC a couple years ago, and we chatted briefly. And you know, I'm really looking forward to hearing what this new record, if it really ends up being a new record. You know, I really hope that it is. I'm really looking forward to hearing it. I hope it's not a disappointment. I really hope it's not.
Yeah.
And I hope that the Carnegie Hall remaster isn't a disappointment either, because I know that there's all the controversy about the CTA remaster and the Steve Wilson remix of Chicago 2 and all that stuff. Everybody gets all upset about it. And
yeah.
But you know, I'm hoping that there's some light here at the end of the tunnel for them. They just posted a picture yesterday of the guy. I think it's just Ray and Lee and Jimmy, and I don't know why I can't remember the dude's name that has the studio in Arizona where they're at. But they posted a picture of them like at a sound desk the other day.
Oh, listening to the new Carnegie Hall stuff. Yeah,
I assume that's what they're doing. I don't know. I mean, they could be working on stuff, but you know,
yeah, Lee Lockman
they're doing
helped
stuff.
them figure that out.
Yeah.
I wish them the best. I hope they get another tour out of this after COVID. You know, I hope that happens. But I think, you know, the key thing here is their music's going to live on because it was some classic, great music. My takeaway, and after all these years now, it's been with Danny not being in the band and watching what happened and how Danny's resurrected his life in a different way in CTA. We never even really talked about CTA, but I think, to be honest, Danny left a legacy there in those first, 16 albums, I'll say.
Yeah.
You know? And in actuality, I'm glad to see he's still playing drums. That's all. And he's still doing his passion.
His spirit and passion and drive is still there when you watch him play. They just did a couple shows pretty recently. Someone had shared a bunch of that stuff.
CTA shows?
Yeah, they just done a couple out west.
Cool.
Some socially distanced events. Someone shared something in that Facebook group that we're in.
That's great.
So I didn't get to watch everything, but that he still sounds great, and he's doing his thing with that band and making those songs sound like they should sound, you know.
We actually crossed the 2-hour mark.
Crazy.
And we have 7 people still with us somehow.
That's even crazier.
Thank you all who've watched this, even with my mic issues and everything else and the discussions we've had. But I thank you, Tate, for being here. I mean, I've had a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Yeah.
This has been a lot of fun. And maybe we'll do this with Steely Dan someday. No.
Hey, if people are up for it, we can do it, man. I'm down to do whatever, you know, or we just do a show and just take questions about whatever. I'm cool with doing that too.
Yeah. But everybody check out Tate's drum covers of Chicago. This is how I found Tate. You know, he plays them as close to the original as possible. You know, and I'm sure Matthew at CCM Drummer loves that fact. You know, and if you want to see some drum covers that are not exactly Danny, but kind of close sometimes, you know, you can watch my drum covers of Chicago. And I hope you guys all enjoyed the show today. Thank you all for being here. I know my wife is probably saying it's time for yoga, Earl. So it's time to go do the yoga. Thank you all for being on. Let's end the broadcast here at 2 hours and 4 minutes.
Cool.
8 viewers. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Take care. See you, everybody.
Bye, everybody.